Emily sat in the passenger seat with both hands, buried inside the sleeves of her oversized hoodie, staring blankly through the rain-covered window, while the city lights smeared into blurry streaks around us. She hadn't stopped shaking since I picked her up. Not from the cold, from humiliation. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and glanced at her again. Mascara stains marked her cheeks like bruises she hadn't earned, but somehow still carried. "You don't have to pretend you're okay," I said quietly. "I know." But her voice sounded hollow, like it came from somewhere far away. 10 minutes earlier, I had walked into the restaurant expecting to meet my best friend for dinner after work. Instead, I found her standing beside a table full of strangers while her boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend now, laughed loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "She's clingy," he had said, holding his beer like he was performing for an audience. Honestly, dating her felt like adopting a sad puppy. People laughed. One girl covered her mouth in shock but still smiled. Emily had just stood there frozen, holding the tiny birthday gift she had bought him. I would never forget that look on her face. Not anger, not even sadness, just devastation, the kind that empties someone from the inside out. I walked over before I could think straight. "Get up," I told her. She looked at me like she was waking from a nightmare. "Nathan, come on." Her ex rolled his eyes. "Relax, man. We're joking." I leaned closer to him. "No," I said calmly. "You're cruel." The entire table went silent. Emily grabbed my arm before things escalated, and I took her out of there without another word. Now she sat beside me in silence while rain hammered softly against the windshield. "I really loved him," she whispered suddenly. The words hit harder than I expected, because she sounded embarrassed about it, like loving someone deeply was something shameful. "You shouldn't say it like that," I replied. "Like what?" "Like it was stupid." She laughed weakly and wiped her face. "Nathan, he humiliated me in front of everyone. That says something about him." "Not you." She looked away again. "You know what the worst part is?" she asked. I waited. I still wanted him to run after me. Her voice cracked at the end. I kept hoping he'd come outside and say he didn't mean it. I felt something twist painfully in my chest. Because Emily always loved people with her entire heart, completely, fearlessly, even when they didn't deserve it, especially when they didn't deserve it. And every time someone hurt her, she blamed herself for being too emotional, too soft, too much. I pulled into my driveway and turned off the engine. "You're staying here tonight," I said. "Nathan, I don't want to bother you." "You won't." "I'll just cry all night." I finally looked directly at her, then cry. That almost broke her again. Her lip trembled as she looked down quickly, trying to hide it. I got out and walked around the car before she could argue anymore. The second she stepped onto the driveway, she folded into herself like she was trying not to take up space. I hated that. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon candles and laundry. Detergent, warm, safe. My 7-year-old daughter Lily had already fallen asleep on the couch with cartoons, still playing softly in the background. Emily smiled faintly at the sight of her. "She waited for me," she whispered. "She always does." Lily stirred awake the moment she heard the door close. "Daddy?" Her sleepy eyes landed on Emily instantly. Without hesitation, she sat up and held out her arms. "Auntie Em." That did it. Emily burst into tears. Real tears this time. Ugly, uncontrollable ones. Lily climbed down carefully and hugged her without asking questions. Kids always know when someone needs love more than explanations. Emily dropped to her knees and hugged her tightly, while trying to apologize through sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry." Lily frowned. "Why are you sorry?" Emily couldn't answer. Because sometimes adults forget children don't require perfection to love someone. I looked away to give her dignity while she cried into my daughter's shoulder. And somewhere deep inside me something shifted, something dangerous. Because I realized I would do absolutely anything to protect her from ever feeling like this again, even from herself. Later that night, after Lily went back to sleep, Emily sat at my kitchen counter wearing one of my hoodies while I made tea. Her eyes were swollen red. "I probably look terrifying," she muttered. "You look tired." "That's your polite way of saying terrible." "No," I said honestly. "You still look like Emily." She stared at me strangely after that. "What?" "Nothing." "Tell me." She wrapped both hands around the mug carefully before speaking. "You've always looked at me differently than other people do." I forced a small smile. Different good or different bad? Different safe. The room suddenly felt smaller. I focused on pouring tea just to keep my composure. Emily and I had been best friends for almost 5 years. She was there when my wife died. There when I learned how to raise Lily alone. There during nights when grief hollowed me out so badly I thought I'd never feel normal again. She became part of our lives so naturally that eventually, I stopped noticing where my world ended and she began, and maybe that was the problem. Because somewhere along the way, friendship stopped being the only thing I felt for her. I just never allowed myself to admit it. Not after losing my wife. Not as a single dad. Not when Emily trusted me completely. So I buried it. Deep. Until tonight. You know what's pathetic? Emily asked softly. What? I kept trying to become the kind of woman he'd finally choose. I looked at her carefully. He did choose you. No, she said with a sad smile. He settled for me until something more exciting came along. I leaned against the counter. You know what I think? What? I think someone taught you that love has to be earned. Her expression changed instantly, not defensive, wounded, like I accidentally touched an old scar. My mom used to say I was hard to love, she whispered. The words sat heavily between us. I felt anger rise so fast it startled me. What? She didn't mean it in a cruel way. Emily. She just thought I was too sensitive. I stared at her in disbelief. Suddenly everything made sense. Why she over-apologized. Why she tolerated disrespect. Why she begged for scraps of affection from people who barely deserved eye contact. Because somewhere deep inside she truly believed love required suffering first. That's not true, I said firmly. She gave me a weak smile. You're my best friend. You have to say that. No, I replied. I don't. Silence settled between us. Heavy. Dangerous. Emily looked down at her tea again, then quietly said, Why haven't you dated anyone seriously since your wife died? I wasn't expecting that. I exhaled slowly. I tried once. What happened? She wasn't you. The second the words left my mouth, I wished I could take them back. Emily froze. So did I. The kitchen suddenly felt unbearably quiet except for the ticking clock above the stove. Nathan. I rubbed my forehead hard. Forget I said that. But she kept staring at me, not shocked, not uncomfortable, just stunned. How long? She whispered. I swallowed. A while. A while was safer than saying the truth. Safer than admitting. I noticed the exact way she smiled, when she was genuinely happy. Safer than admitting Lily accidentally called her mom once 6 months ago, and part of me secretly wished she would do it again. Safer than admitting every man Emily dated frustrated me because none of them saw what was right in front of them. Emily stood slowly from the stool. For one terrifying second I thought she might leave. Instead she walked closer. Nathan, she said softly, why didn't you tell me? Because you were healing. Because I didn't want to ruin our friendship. Because I'm a widower with a daughter and emotional baggage the size of Texas. That made her laugh unexpectedly through her tears. Then she looked at me again. Really looked at me. And I suddenly realized something terrifying. She wasn't pulling away. You know what's weird? She whispered. What? You're the only man who's ever made me feel loved when you weren't even trying to. My heartbeat slammed hard against my ribs. Emily. She shook her head slowly, like she was trying to understand something herself. I spent years chasing people who made me question my worth, she said. And somehow the person who loved me best was standing right in front of me the entire time. I couldn't breathe properly, because after years of suppressing it, after convincing myself it was impossible, hope hurt. Hope was terrifying. Then Emily stepped closer and rested her forehead gently against my chest. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Of what? What if losing you would hurt worse than anything else? I closed my eyes. Carefully, slowly, I wrapped my arms around her. You're not going to lose me. She trembled against me, not from sadness this time, from relief. We stayed like that for a long moment, while rain continued tapping softly against the windows. And for the first time in years, the house didn't feel haunted by grief anymore. It felt alive. Then, from the hallway, a sleepy little voice interrupted us. Daddy? We pulled apart instantly. Lily stood there rubbing her eyes while holding her stuffed rabbit. You okay, Bug? I asked gently. She looked between us suspiciously. Then she smiled. A huge knowing smile. You hugged Auntie Em the same way Mommy used to hug you. The air disappeared from my lungs. Children notice everything. Emily's eyes filled immediately. Lily walked over sleepily and grabbed Emily's hand. You can stay forever if you want, she mumbled. Emily looked absolutely shattered by those words. Not broken, healed. She knelt carefully in front of Lily. Forever's a really long time. Lily shrugged. That's okay. Then she yawned dramatically and wandered back toward her room. Halfway down the hallway she turned around and added, Also, Daddy smiles more when you're here. And then she disappeared. Emily covered her mouth while laughing and crying at the same time. I leaned against the counter, completely speechless. After a moment, she looked back at me. I think your daughter just changed my life. No, I said quietly. She just said out loud what I was too afraid to.